I've got a cool name.
Okay, welcome everybody to this evening's Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting. My name is Councillor Osborne. As yet, I'm not quite the chairman, so there we are. I've got a bit of reading to do here for a bit of housekeeping. So my this meeting has been held remotely. It's being live streamed via YouTube, and the recording of it will be available afterwards on our website. Councillors and officers are reminded to put their mobile phones onto silent. If they have one near them, mute their microphones when not speaking, so this will reduce feedback and background noise and saves bandwidth and prevents loss of connection. We'll first do a roll check of members who are expected to attend. So when I say your name, please turn on your microphone and confirm that you are connected. So I've got Councillor Barnes.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Carroll. Jimmy, you there?
Is that right? Have I got it?
Yeah, that do.
Thank you.
Councillor Clark.
Present.
Yeah. Councillor Cook. Councillor Cook. Might be muted. Councillor Cook. We might have to come back. Councillor Cortell.
Present.
Councillor Cook present.
Well done. Councillor Drayson, Chairman of Council.
Present.
Okay. Deirdre Williams.
Present.
Thank you.
Yeah. Here.
Councillor Errington.
Present.
Councillor Gray.
Present.
Councillor Langlands.
Present.
Councillor Maynard.
Good evening.
Well done. Councillor Mooney. Councillor Mooney. I know you're there. I saw you.
Present, sorry.
Well done. And me. I'm here. Any other councillors out there who have not yet been mentioned?
Yes, Councillor Madeley.
Councillor
Just sitting
Madeley.
in.
Well done. Any others?
Mary
Councillor
Barnes.
Curtis.
Councillor Curtis, Mary Barnes,
Councillor Coleman.
Yeah.
Councillor Coleman.
Councillor Stevens. Councillor Hart.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. There's Sally Ann. Is that it?
Councillor Dixon.
Councillor Dixon. Yeah. Well done. And
Councillor Stevens. Did you get me?
Yeah, got you. Well done. I did have Councillor Thomas was here, but he said if he wasn't needed, he would disappear. So there we are. Also joining us today, we've got Dr. Tony Leonard, the Executive Director. Assume you're here, Tony. Yeah.
Present.
Malcolm Johnson, Executive Director.
Present.
Yeah. Robin Venard.
Present.
Yeah. Ben Hook. He better be here.
Yeah, I'm here.
That's good. And then I've got Councillor Coleman, yes. Councillor Dixon, yes. Councillor Maley, yes, I believe. And Councillor Stevens. We've also got two technical staff in the meeting to operate the live broadcast and to be on hand if there's any difficulties. So that's Claire and Kieran. Democratic Services Officer and Committee Clerk today is Louise. So welcome, Louise. Good job
Present.
you're here.
Thank you.
Members of the committee will be making decisions today based on a named vote. Louise will call out each member in turn and they will either answer for or against or abstain. Members, please remember to turn your microphone on when you do this. Because of the new format, members are encouraged to make their comments succinct and pertinent to ensure smooth running of the meeting. Those members who wish to speak, please indicate by typing your surname only into the chat facility The chat facility is persistent and cannot be deleted, so don't use any inappropriate language because could be a matter of code of conduct. Officers wishing to respond to members' questions, please type interject. Members who have asked a question will be asked if they wish to come back after receiving a response, so there's no need to retype your surname. The requirement that all members have read the paperwork, which I'm sure we have. Members are reminded not to press leave meeting if you leave the room because you'll switch the machine off, and that wouldn't be good. And remember to turn off your microphones if you do leave. Please be aware there may be a time delay of 5 seconds whilst a member officer appears on screen. Each item will be reintroduced as we get to it. So I think that's probably it. I've got the items on there. And just for a bit of housekeeping, if you don't know where your own fire escapes is, bad news. So what I'll do now, go to the agenda and I'll pass straight over to Dr. Leonard for the first item on the agenda, which is election of chairman. Tony?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Osborne. May I please have a nomination for election of chairman, please?
Proposed Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Lawrence.
I second that.
Thank you. That was Councillor Langland, was it?
Yes, it was
Thank you very
indeed.
much. Are there any other nominations? If not, then I'll ask Louise to take a recorded vote, please.
No need to take a recorded vote as there are no other nominations for this one.
Thank you very much then. Chairman, I'll pass back to you now and congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. I don't think I've ever been elected chairman to anything like that before, but in that way, but that's good. So thank you very much. Second item on the agenda is election of vice chairman. Do I have someone to propose a vice chairman, please?
Councillor Errington, I would like to propose Councillor Vicky Cook.
Okay, and do you have a seconder for that?
Yes, Councillor Gray, I would like to second it.
Thank you very much. Are there any other nominations? I'll take that as a no. So if that's the case, congratulations, Councillor Cook, on being vice chairman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So 1, 2, 3. Minutes. Authorise the chairman to sign the minutes, which will be a challenge. The meeting of the later date of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee to be held on the 16th of March. So I assume, Louise, we just say we're happy with those and I'll sign them next time. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So is everybody, do I need anybody to just say they're happy with the minutes? Yep. All happy with those?
Agreed.
Oh, great. That's good. We take that.
Agreed.
Well done. Right. Item 4, apologies and substitutes. I assume there's no one substituting for anybody because I think we're all here. Is that the case?
Yes, that's correct.
Cool. What I will do, before I move on, I will welcome new members to the committee, or back to the committee in that case. Councillor Charlie Clark, welcome back, Charlie. And Councillor Deirdre Earl Williams, welcome back, Deirdre. What I will say is, well, Councillor Drayson, who was last year's vice chairman, has left, but he hasn't because he's now chairman of council, so he's here anyway. So well done on that, Brian. And thanks to Councillor Giawan, who has left us, possibly to go on to better things, but maybe not. Additional agenda items, there are none. Disclosure of interest. Does anybody have any disclosure of interest they believe they need to make? I would think probably not. All quiet on that? I'll take that as a no. 7, draft annual report to the council. This is what we usually do before the full council, the annual council meeting. So we're doing it afterwards because of certain things. So as long as everybody's happy with that, then that should be good. What do we need to do with this, Louise, except for thank you for writing it up?
It's a report to be recommended on to council if everybody's happy.
Okay. Do we need to take a roll call on this one?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, I
Yeah.
tried to speak.
Okay.
On page 5, I notice the paragraph about benefits performance. Yes, great news on the 2 measurable benefits, but Rother Citizens Advice have some issues concerning the collection protocol, e.g. the apparently early use of bailiffs, which will be addressed between RDC and Rother Citizens Advice in the coming weeks. And I don't know whether that needs noting in the report or whether it's just information, end of story.
What would your take on that be, Louise? I think this is just a report, isn't it?
This is a report of last year, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not what's going to happen in the next few weeks, I would have thought.
Yeah.
Yes, it's just a summary of what happened over the previous year.
Okay. I've got. Go on, carry on.
Sorry, my other point is on page 7, paragraph 35, concerning the SLA task and finish group. That is a little bit out of date because the citizens' advice, as I said in my annual report, are in the process of, or have found premises and are in the process of negotiating a lease. So 35.1C is a little bit dated. And yes, the funding for parish councils has been explored and they've now got other funding. I don't know if it's worth noting or not.
Well, I suppose there's nothing to stop us just saying that, new premises have been located. Would that be fine?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
we do that. I've got Councillor Drayson on my list. Councillor Drayson?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Drayson speaking. Actually, I was just going to say what Councillor Cortell just said, but I was going to say it actually shows a success story for a task and finish group, that we asked them to go and seek funding and seek alternative premises, and they have gone about and done that. So I was going to sell it as a success story. Thank you.
Yeah, makes sense.
I would support that.
Good. Councillor Cook.
Yes, I would just like to add a comment, Chairman, if I may, just to say that this is the draft annual report for what happened in the previous year.
Yeah.
If Councillor Cortell is sure that his recommendation refers to 2019 to 2020, then I'm happy to accept it. And with that acceptance, I ask to move the report.
Thank you.
No, it's occurred to me, Mr. Chairman, that in fact the premises was reported to me in April, so I apologise, I shouldn't have brought it up.
Okay, that's all right, no problem. So we're happy.
Perhaps we could put it as a footnote.
Yeah, good idea. So shall we take this? I assume we're now happy with the report. So shall we go to a vote?
Can I second it?
Yes, you can. So it's moved by Councillor Cook, seconded by Councillor brain fade.
Councillor Barnes.
Barnes, thank you. Louise, do you wish to go to the roll call?
Yep, okay, councillors, I will call your names out alphabetically. Please respond with for, against or abstain. Once your name has been called, switch on your microphone only to vote. If you do not answer after your name has been called twice or contact is lost, members will be recorded as abstaining. Councillor Barnes,
For.
Councillor Carroll,
For.
Councillor Clark,
For.
Councillor Cook,
For.
Councillor Cortell,
For.
Councillor Mrs Earl Williams,
For.
Councillor Errington,
For.
Councillor Gray,
For.
Councillor Langlands,
For.
Councillor Maynard,
For.
Councillor Mooney,
For.
and Councillor Osborne.
For.
That's unanimous.
Okay, that's good. Thank you very much. Moving on then to item 8, call-in and urgency procedures. This is just this is recommendation to be resolved that the report is noted. We do this pretty well most years, well every year at this time, just to make sure that the call-in and urgency procedures are correct. We have used them, so it can't be too bad. Anybody got any views on this, or are we quite happy with it?
Move we accept the report, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cook?
Councillor Barnes speaking.
Yeah. Councillor Cook, you've indicated?
Councillor Cook, you need to take your microphone off.
Sorry, Councillor Barnes stole my thunder. I would have moved to the report myself, but as he's done that, I would like to second that this report be noted.
Okay, thank you very much. Louise, do we need the same roll call on this one, or is this just a take as a nod?
No, I'll do another roll call.
Okay.
So councillors, please answer for, against, or abstain. Councillor Barnes,
For.
Councillor Carroll,
For.
Councillor Clark,
For.
Councillor Cook,
For.
Councillor Cortell,
For.
Councillor Mrs Earl Williams,
For.
Councillor Errington,
For.
Councillor Gray,
For.
Councillor Langlands,
For.
Councillor Maynard,
For.
Councillor Mooney,
For.
and Councillor Osborne.
For.
That's unanimous.
Excellent. Well done. Now then, performance report. Item 9, performance report, 4th quarter 2019 to 20. Recommendation is resolved that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee consider these findings and recommend any actions to Cabinet as necessary. So, Head of Service Ben Hook, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. This report is the end of year report for the 2019-20 financial year. In that year, we had a focus on 4 themes: housing and homelessness, housing benefit, waste and recycling, being it was the first year of the new waste contract, and asset income as our key performance indicators that Scrutiny chose and Cabinet chose to keep under review for that year. Out of the all of the targets set, 3 of those targets met or exceeded their target. They were affordable homes built gross, which is the supply target. That's a target that's set by the council deemed to be a realistically achievable target based on what we anticipate coming forward within the affordable homes market for that year. The housing, the new claim benefit claims and the existing benefit claims, also both of those KPIs met or exceeded their targets. That's following a significant improvement program that was put into place to bring performance in that area back up to scratch, and that has been deemed to be significantly successful based on the fact that it's now not only are we meeting our own targets, but we are no longer in the lower quartiles of performance for that nationally. The other KPI to note is the asset income, the return on investment percentage. On your report, that is indicated as a warning figure. That's a sudden. What we will have noticed is throughout the year that was reported as having exceeded the proposed target, and then in the last quarter having not met the final target, and that's due to a number of factors. First of all, there was a significant investment of just over £3 million that took place late in the financial year, but very little income was derived from that purchase throughout that financial year. As well as that, there was a asset revaluation which actually uplifted the overall value of the portfolio. So the income derived from that portfolio as a percentage of its overall value dropped. What I will say is that with regards to the return on investment, when we see a full year's income from both the Battle Market Square and the Glover's House investments in the next financial year, we'd expect that to stabilise back up to above the 6% target. With regards to the remaining targets, obviously those have not met their anticipated achievements. Waste and recycling, on the basis that actually it's only part of the year was conducted under the new contract, and as you'll see in some of the indicators, that there is an improvement by the comparison to the same quarter in the previous years. So I'm happy to take any questions, Chairman, on those KPIs.
Thank you, Ben. Yeah, and someone stuck a bit of a spanner in the works in the last couple of weeks of the financial year, didn't they? So,
yeah, that was a little unfair.
So, any questions for Ben? Tony, do you want to add anything?
Nothing for me, Chairman, at this stage.
Okay. Councillor Cortell, you've indicated.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to commend the officers on providing households with self-contained temporary accommodation and ensuring no households with children live in accommodation with shared facilities. I think that's quite an achievement, particularly with COVID-19. That was really important to happen, and it has happened.
Good. Good. Anybody else have any specific questions or concerns?
Sorry, can I speak again?
Yeah,
Chair?
go ahead.
Waste and recycling. Can I make a small suggestion? Do blocks of flats have their full quota of recycling bins? Because I think that could make quite a difference to the future level of recycling. If I can talk about my own block of flats, we have 6 recycling bins for 13 flats. Now we're entitled to 1 each, 1 per flat. And I've often found that the recycling bins have been absolutely full, and I've had to hold back my recycling for several days until there's another collection. So, and they're emptied a bit. And I think if on a consistent basis the bins are full and it's impossible to recycle, it does encourage people to put recycling in rubbish. So in the case of my block of flats, probably we've only got enough room for 2 additional bins, taking it from 6 to 8, which would make a difference. But I suspect there are quite a lot of blocks of flats that are in a similar position, and I think that may be worth looking at.
Any view on that, Tony?
Chairman, just very briefly, there is on the next agenda item the work programme for next year, which does include the next Overview Scrutiny Committee on the 20th of July review of the waste contract. So these are the kind of points members may wish to raise at that point. I don't want to get into the detail because we've got 200 square miles of collections around here, but point taken, and we'll take that away and think about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor John Barnes has indicated.
Yes, Chairman. I simply wanted to alert people, I think, to a couple of things which are worrying. One, I don't think we want to chase today, but clearly if the return on our investments is falling, and of course the whole financial position is going to be very much subject to what help government is going to bring, but that could have some worrying consequences for actually balancing our budget next year. So there may be a point at looking at that at some stage in the future. Clearly, the big worries remain those around housing, particularly as we move to the new objective test. And I think probably we're going to look at those in the autumn, so I won't chase them very hard today. But although we're doing better than we were, we're still not doing anything like well enough in terms of actually getting close to the targets. And I'm particularly worried about affordable homes. I do think we need to look hard at, and I would like to put the officers on alert to say something about prefabrication in September, because I think really that would be a way of bringing forward houses rather more speedily. And again, obviously, there are a number of other issues which one might very well want to pursue outside this meeting. But just to say, I think September is going to be a very important meeting on the whole housing target. And clearly, around the core strategy, we shall presumably be hearing a little more from the officers about that before the autumn.
Thank you. I think on the housing thing, we possibly, it's awkward because the whole trade has been closed down for 3 months, and currently, believe it or not, it's sort of taking between 8 and 12 weeks to get plasterboard, which is an intrinsic part of building a house. Also, some suppliers are short of insulation materials. Some are getting struggles with getting cement even. So at the moment, I'm not surprised there's a delay. Sites have reopened, and obviously supplies will come back. But at the moment, it's not an easy trip at the moment to get materials to actually build houses. So that's something that I've noticed from my point of view. Anybody else got anything there to want to say? Ben, is it anything you want to?
Sorry, can I just?
Sorry, go on, John.
Sorry, can I just come back? And
Yep.
Yeah, I think we do need to find ways of, as far as we can, to beginning to regenerate the housing market, because it will be at a low when we restart the economy. So we do need to think quite hard about what we can do. But we may also want to speak with our MPs to see whether there's anything they can do. There's some quite interesting suggestions about how you might temporarily boost house building without boosting house prices around, and I'll draw their attention to some of that. But maybe our officers would care to look at some of those solutions and lobby for them.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Cortell, you've indicated.
Thank you, Chair. Concerning the return on investment that Councillor Barnes was mentioning, I noticed on page 33 that the income, as Mr. Hook has pointed out, was only for part of the year. So we're not really comparing like with like. I think an accountant would take the view that a true and fair view would be to compare a year's equivalent income with a year's equivalent of property values, and as we're not doing that, that affects the rate of investment. Rate of return on investment downwards, I think, unfairly.
Okay.
I wonder whether Councillor Mooney might have a view.
Well, he's an accountant. I wouldn't think so.
Yes, I agree. But of course, we have to value. We have to deal with the situation as we find it. But I think there should be a caveat in there. I think your point is valid.
Okay, Ben, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's what I've tried to draw out in terms of the report, because it's such a significant drop in return on investment. We only had 11 out of the 12 months of income from the Glover's house purchase, and while that might not seem a lot, that's 450,000 a year. So we're talking just shy of 40 grand that we've lost out on then, and then obviously 3.075 million pounds gone out on the Battle Market Square, and we got about 17,000 pounds worth of income in that financial year just because of when it completed. So yes, it has something to do with the way in which we calculate our return on investment, which doesn't do us much favors when we purchase a property in January, but it will rebound in the next financial year. The only thing I would say about moving forward in terms of scrutiny on the income in any of the targets that we have coming forward for this financial year is that we will probably have to do some sort of caveat on all of them, with regards to the COVID-19 impact. So we as officers will probably go back and look at the anticipated targets for the 2021 financial year, and maybe look to try and caveat them and provide members with a realistic outturn given the pandemic and its impacts. In terms of what Councillor Barnes said, well, all I'll say, Councillor, is that I guarantee you I'll pass on your words to the MP for Hastings and Rye, and we'll work on the other MP. Thank you.
Councillor Hart, if you're still there and you just got a mention, what do you think on that one?
Send me all the information and let's see what we can do. Yes?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm here to help.
That's all right then. Good. We got that on record. You're on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
So,
ship it in.
You can't duck out of that one. Well, if everybody else is happy, I haven't got any more people come up on my third screen I'm watching for chat. So if you're happy with the performance report, then was someone happy to move it? Councillor Cook, I would assume.
Happy to move that, Chairman.
Thank you. And a seconder?
Happy to second that. Lynn Langlands, Councillor Lynn Langlands.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Louise, over to you.
Okay, councillors, I'll call your names out alphabetically and please respond with for, against, abstain. Councillor Barnes.
For.
Councillor Carroll.
For.
Councillor Clark.
For.
Councillor Cook.
For.
Councillor Cortell.
For.
Councillor Mrs. Earl Williams.
For.
Councillor Errington.
For.
Councillor Gray.
For.
Councillor Langlands.
For.
Councillor Maynard.
For.
Councillor Mooney.
For.
And Councillor Osborne.
For.
That's unanimous.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 10, annual work programme. Recommendation be resolved that the committee set its work programme for the new council year. What we usually do, we have a meeting before or during to actually sort of work out our work programme. But instead, Louise sent out an email asking for information to come back. So we've got some of that. I've got Councillor Gray is indicated. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to say that I'm very concerned that the environment strategy is not mentioned in the body of the report, except in the Appendix 1, page 38, where it's given the highest priority rating, along with 4 other subjects. I think we all agree it's a scientific fact that climate change is the greatest challenge facing our society, and the effects will be far more devastating than any global pandemic, threatening not just humans but all species. In the light of Rother District Council declaring a climate emergency last September and a commitment to become carbon neutral by 2030, I wish to propose that the following paragraph be inserted, possibly at paragraph 3, in the introduction on page 35. All future reports and work undertaken by Rother District Council will be in accordance with the environment strategy and commitment to become carbon neutral by 2030. Every report submitted must include an environmental impact section to meet with the proposals set out in the environment strategy 2020-2030. Thank you.
Thank you, Polly. I do have sympathies with where you're coming from. I think I'll ask Tony to come in a minute. I think at the moment, I think there's a meeting of the Climate Change Action Group going to be scheduled for sometime in July.
Could I just answer that, because I am on that strategy group, Chair.
So am I.
There isn't yet a date fixed. And I'm really concerned that tonight we're being asked to approve this report, and I don't feel happy.
Yeah, but this is the work programme for this committee. This is not the council policy. So what I would say is, if when we go back to the Climate Change Action Group for their final report, is that your paragraph is then put as a recommendation that goes to the Cabinet for them to vote on to include it as part of the council's policy, then as that then becomes a policy, your paragraph will be in there as opposed to in this, because to be honest, if it's sort of on page 35, it's just put in there, that's just an annual work programme for this committee, as opposed to it being an actual council policy ratified by Cabinet. So that's the way I'm looking at it. Tony, do you want to sort of come back and confirm or deny that?
Chairman, if I may just come in on a couple of points, if I may, please. As you say, this is the setting of the work programme for the Scrutiny Committee over the year ahead. So the point that Councillor Gray is making is a valid point, but it's not necessarily applicable for this particular agenda item. If I may, Councillor Gray, we'll take that away. Reports are being reviewed on how they're going to be presented in the future to committees, of which the statement on, as we have a risk assessment, also doing an assessment on environment as well. So that is being considered as we speak. So that will be coming forward into the future. If you wish to get it recorded somewhere, we can record it, but it will be taken away as a note for us to put that through. Coming back to this report, if I must say that there's 2 appendices we need to really concentrate on this evening, and that's on page 38 and 39. Appendix 1 is the list of subjects which members prioritise what they would like to see on this forthcoming year's agenda. And those were listed for those which we received and in priority order as well on the weighting. What the committee would normally do is have a meeting ahead of this one to discuss those priority lists and to put them into the work programme ready for this meeting to be agreed as we move forward. Because we've not had time to do that, because of the way things have gone on with this committee, we've got the 2 appendices, and what we need to do is then take those items on the Appendix 1 and insert them into Appendix 2. And I know there's been some discussions around that, which the chairman may want to take you through as we move forward on that. Since that time, there's a couple of queries I want to raise. There's one on the 24th of August. We don't normally have a scrutiny committee at that time of year, and that can be quite problematic trying to get a committee in August, although this is quite an unusual year, but it's in there as a contingency. But at the moment, there's no proposed meetings on that date, so we may wish to try and avoid that if possible. And the second thing is that since this report has been printed, the Cabinet have referred the corporate plan back to scrutiny to look at 3 other areas, because they felt that that's been missing from the corporate plan when it was first drafted before the COVID came in, and they wanted to have a look at the economic impact and considerations of COVID-19 pandemic. Now they've got a steering group set up. They also referred it back because they wanted to have a look at more around the growing prosperity aims, because they felt that would be slightly altered because of this. And they also want to include elements coming out of the draft environment strategy, so that could be built into the corporate plan as well. So coming back to the environment strategy, there is due to be a meeting in July. I know Ben was floating around a couple of dates with the chairman of that committee today to try and finalise that date. We've now got the consultation details back, which we can then feed into that task and finish group, and then that will then feed up to Cabinet for a future approval on that side, of which this committee will then be looking at the corporate plan to make sure those points are taken up from the strategy. So that's where we are on those matters. So really it's back to the chairman to talk us through or take us through those items on Appendix 1 and how that fits into the work programme on Appendix 2, Chairman.
Okay. Polly, are you happy with that?
Thank you very much, Dr. Leonard. Could I just ask one more question? Has the Environment Strategy Officer been appointed yet?
Yes, they've been appointed and we're waiting for them to join us. Ben will probably be able to give you more precise data when they're joining.
So yeah, thank you, Tony. We've had confirmation now that the new environment strategy manager will be joining the authority towards the end of August. So provisional start date on the 17th.
Right. So we better get some stuff in place for him to do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. You happier now, Polly?
Thank you very much.
Good. Okay. Right. If we go, I've got a few councillors wish to speak. Which way round? So I'll take them first. I think I'll take them first, and then I'll go through the Appendix 1. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I first wanted to express a little bit of disappointment that the anti-poverty task and finish group wasn't able to meet during the last year. However, now, obviously, since the pandemic, I think it's more important than ever that that committee meets so that they can ratify quickly a plan to better combat poverty within the district. Considering obviously we all know the effects of the pandemic and the number of people that are finding themselves in poverty for perhaps the first time in their lives, and we need to make sure we have a plan in place to fix that. And my one comment would be perhaps that I see that the report of the anti-poverty task and finish group is currently on the work programme to be presented on the 23rd of November. Perhaps that could be pushed a little bit earlier, considering the urgency of it and the need for that report to work in with the economic recovery steering group to make sure that any recovery we go ahead with following the crisis doesn't negatively affect those in poverty. Perhaps that meeting in August could be the perfect blank space to put that in, or a little bit later, depending on when the anti-poverty group is obviously able to meet, which I'd like to happen as soon as possible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Tony, any ideas when this group might get up and running?
Chairman, I'll have to pass that one to Malcolm because it's his area. Sorry.
All right. Malcolm?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think the reason it was put in for that date in August was, I think one of the things members are looking at is around benefits and the some of the reductions on offer. That would tie in with the budget timetable, because obviously we need to go through a consultation process, and also it needs to be approved as part of the council's budget. I do take Councillor Coleman's point about needing to consider it urgently, and I think that's a well-made point, but it will need to tie in with the budget timetable. So I think if we can sort of get those two things working together, and I'm aware that I take Councillor Coleman's comment on board, it hasn't been able to meet, and that is noted, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor John Barnes.
Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Yep. I think we need to feed in the items on housing and on regeneration in the autumn. I think both of them are going to be quite considerably affected by what has happened in terms of the pandemic. Probably August is too soon to begin to take stock of the impact. We need to let the recovery begin to take shape so that we can assess what kind of recovery it is. But I think it would be useful for us to have a discussion on both regeneration and on housing at the September meeting, and begin to feed our thoughts towards Cabinet for action.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cook.
I just wanted to give my support to Councillor Gray's concerns. I too was a little surprised that the environment strategy hadn't been put on to the works programme. Will it go to Cabinet first before it comes back for scrutiny? Or should it go to scrutiny first before it goes to Cabinet?
I don't believe it will come back to scrutiny. I think what it is, once the result of the consultation has been reported to the Climate Change Action Group, they then work up their proposals that then get sent straight to Cabinet.
Right.
That's correct, Chairman.
So we will get the chance to discuss it and scrutinise it if Cabinet push it back to us, or if we call it in. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Cortell.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to talk about homelessness, and I'd like to see that going on the July agenda, because I think it's pretty urgent. I'd like to say that I think Joe Powell and the Rother Housing team have done some fantastic work in housing rough sleepers. They've housed people suffering domestic abuse, and they've housed people who were about to become rough sleepers on the day that they became homeless, and that's brilliant. But there are some risks looking ahead, and the first risk is that rough sleepers returning to the street, if they've had the risk of rough sleepers returning to the street, if they haven't been offered the support services they need, be it drug or alcohol rehabilitation, be it mental health support, or simply a mentor giving them a way forward. And they need these support services to keep them continually housed. The second area is the end of the moratorium on evictions. Now, I had an email exchange with Joe Powell this afternoon, and he tells me that isn't too great a problem, but I think there's a third problem, which is the tapering of the furloughing scheme. As employers start having to contribute financially towards it, that could result in quite a lot of redundancies, and the eventual demise of the furloughing scheme will result in even more redundancies. And I think as a scrutiny committee, we need to mitigate these risks before they happen. So we need to act proactively now. And I'm therefore suggesting a discussion on homelessness at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting on the 20th of July.
Tony, do you want to come back?
Yes, Chairman, if I may. As with all these things, we need to be very careful in setting the work programme that we don't stretch the resources so thinly that we actually don't deliver anything. On the work programme at the moment, we've got the next meeting, the main item on the agenda is the waste contract review, and that was requested from last year to go on there a year after the contract has been in place, which is why that's on the agenda. That will involve the same head of service in bringing that report forward, and so that's really been the focus on that. Secondly, I think there's also the Economic Recovery Steering Group that's been set up by Cabinet to look at the impact of COVID-19 and start getting into place some of those issues. Thirdly, on the items for consideration, there is a keenness to have the progress on the housing strategy and homelessness on there as well. And it was felt appropriate to tie that together with a report of the anti-poverty task and finish group to fit it all neatly together under that one heading.
Yeah.
And fitting that maybe into the 23rd of November agenda committee as a main item, then that ties that all neatly in place. That gives a good run of the housing strategy in terms of housing development, in terms of homelessness and the anti-poverty task and finish group. If we try and squeeze the homelessness into the 20th of July, you won't get a report on one or the other. It'll be one without the other. So I just think we need to be mindful of that. I'm also very mindful that things are happening at a real pace. And I think sometimes the scrutiny will be better reflecting on by the 23rd of August, have the actions we put in place been successful? And if not, what do we then need to do to amend it on that basis? Because the work that's going on with the Economic Recovery Steering Group and with the officers in consultation with the members through their emails and that generally has been fairly successful to date on that action.
Good. I've got Councillor Courtauld. Did you wish to come back?
Yes, I would, please. I understand what Dr. Leonard is saying. Perhaps July is too soon because of a full programme. As we have a gap in August, I think possibly it should be considered there, and I would support having a meeting in August. I mean, what I think Dr. Leonard is saying is let's reflect on how the programme works and scrutinise it after the event. I'm hoping that this committee will be a little bit more proactive and have some input a little earlier on, and therefore if we have a meeting in August, I would suggest that homelessness is part of that meeting.
Okay. Councillor Maynard, you indicated?
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Chairman. I think that it doesn't matter which party that we all represent or not, as the case may be, the fact of the matter is that what's worked for scrutiny in the past, I think is really good, because it does exactly what it says on the tin. And I think that quite clearly, if you've got one specific theme to talk about in a particular meeting, aside from performance monitoring, for example, if you've got one specific thing that you want to discuss, I think that makes for a more effective meeting. Members tend historically to have been more engaged when you have one very important item on the agenda where scrutiny can make a real difference. And of course, those task and finish groups, those working groups that we've had before, have done some really important pieces of work. So we mustn't underplay the importance of working groups. And Councillor Courtauld, when he refers to certain areas of council responsibility and interest that really interest him, I think that's really important, that that's reflected in those task and finish groups. I think to actually look at a particular date, to look at and try and rush that process through, what we're about as a scrutiny committee should be about trying to influence policy, trying to come up with innovative solutions to the problems that the council will face as we go forward. And to do that, it's important to make a quality decision, not one that we actually rush. And so for that reason, I would actually be not in favour of having an August meeting, and I would be in favour of being very cautious about overloading, or the possibility of overloading, the work programme, because obviously the other thing we must be acutely aware of is any officer involvement in that work programme, and especially those task and finish groups, because we need to be very aware of the resource that we have within the authority, and aware that we need to deploy that effectively. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barnes.
Yes, I'm inclined to think that we shouldn't rush things too much. I'm a bit worried we're overloading the November meeting, though. I would have preferred to deal with housing rather sooner than that, because we're going to look at anti-poverty in November. I do accept, I think that the officers need some time to prepare for these meetings. And COVID is clearly going to take a considerable amount of officer time for the foreseeable future. So I'm rather with Councillor Maynard. Don't let's rush, but I think to leave everything till November is leaving it too late. I think the September meeting really should have a big housing and homelessness focus.
Ben, you wish to interject?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's more just to sort of give a bit more context as to why, as officers we feel the November meeting might be more beneficial for members. Is that on the latest forward plan for Cabinet, we're looking to bring forward a number of papers both to the July and the September cabinets, which would then go on to September Council, that would be centred around activating and bringing forward the local housing company. I think given that that's the timescale we're looking at to get the housing company up and running, November then gives us a month to prepare a report off the back of that, following the outcome of any cabinet or council decision that's made there. I just feel that if we go to September, it means that we're not going to be in a position, because reports obviously have to be written in advance, to provide a full contextual debate to what could be happening, a couple of months later. So it's just really, it just gives us that opportunity to get the housing company into place, and then bring forward the business case for approval at full council, and then we'll give a real meaty discussion around housing delivery, particularly at Scrutiny. I just feel that if we bring it forward to September, it will be in a position where we're saying, well, in a couple of months, or we will soon be. So that's really all it is, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think if we go back to Appendix 1 and 2, you'll see there on Appendix 1, CPE, Task and Finish Group. We know now that the change to the parking regime should be activated or will become live on the 1st of October. So we need to look at that on the effect of not only the high streets, but on the income of our own car parks. So that needs to be looked at, I would say, in April of next year. We've got an event strategy, which is tourism, which we need to look at, which a number of people have mentioned to Louise. That's a one. Homelessness, obviously, that's important. Progress on the environment strategy, I think we've worked it out, and that's possibly going to the September council meeting. Progress on the housing strategy is a one. Economic development, employment and funding, that's Cabinet, which have got an economic recovery group, as has been mentioned. Regeneration, including a leisure centre, fountains and skate park, item for consideration. That's being looked at, I believe, by the July Cabinet meeting. Effective CPE on car park to be taken at the same time as the Task and Finish group. And tourism review is only a 3, but that needs looking at, because I think there's more sort of want on the event strategy. So if we now go to the Appendix 2, you'll see the first one we got there is today, so that's sorted out with. July meeting, waste contract review, so that's a biggie. Plus we've got recommendations from community governance review steering group and revenue budget and capital programme monitoring, which that might take a bit of time up, actually, given the position we find ourselves in. The 24th of August meeting, I've sort of penciled in there event strategy and tourism, but then I was reminded by Louise and others that we don't generally meet in August, so we can adjust the suit. If event strategy isn't too important, well, say, I don't want to talk it down, but it's obviously important. But if we didn't need to have an August meeting, then I'm easy. If I don't know if anybody's going on holiday or not, I'm certainly not. But we can leave that blank. 14th of September, performance progress report, first quarter. revenue budget and capital monitoring. That's we could move event strategy into there if you like. October medium-term financial is a main item. If possible, we could have the housing strategy from November. We could move that to October, given if there's time. Report of the anti-poverty task and finish group, which could include housing or homelessness and a housing strategy. And then in March, we can put in their environment strategy as well, because hopefully that will be up and running and that can be have a look at. And then April of next year, CPE task and finish group wants to get underway because we may be affected by our income from on-street parking charges in a good way or bad way. My phone's been bleeping. Councillor Curtis has left the meeting. He's had to go to a parish council meeting.
Excuse me, I think, sorry, Mr. Chair, I think you missed
Councillor
me.
Langens, yes, you indicated.
I just wanted to bring in the point about the CPE which I put up, which was largely due to the fact that East Sussex County Council are bringing in this cycling and walking infrastructure plan. And I think my concern was that if we're going to pedestrianise streets and wide lane streets and make them one way, and even in Rye, should they be putting meters into those streets before October when there clearly won't be any revenue from them? I'm not quite sure whether we should, the task and finish group should, or somebody should be communicating with East Sussex to try and look at what they're exactly going to do in those areas and how that's going to impact on the town centre itself. I don't know.
Yeah, I assume you're talking about, I think that the County Council are doing temporary pedestrianisations and things at the moment to assist with social distancing.
But I think there's a second phase of money to make those permanent, isn't it? Now, if just for example, my concern is that in October, all these meters will go in, or possibly before, and then they will never ever be used. And it seems a little bit short-sighted. There doesn't seem a lot of joined-up thinking here with a plan that East Sussex have suggested, and then another, obviously a CPE plan that has sort of become out of date since COVID-19. And I'm concerned that this furniture will arrive on these streets, gain no income, and it will actually impact on charges or the contract or whatever. Is there no way that we could look at that a bit earlier and make sure that that doesn't happen if we're going to consider a permanent arrangement?
Yeah, but to be honest, I don't think that we as the Scrutiny Committee would look at what the County Council do, because all ultimately we're affected, all we want to look at is the effect of the CPE on our car park income and usage. I may be wrong, but
yeah,
the car parking and the streets are the sort of domain of the County Council. Malcolm, you wanted to come in? You got anything to add?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I was just Councillor Langlands makes it, a good point in the fact that we are in very different times to what when a lot of this stuff was being planned. I think there's several stages in this, and the first one is looking at, are there temporary measures we can do to get life on the high street back to normal? And then I think there's a second stage, which maybe are some of those permanent. I suspect that some of them won't be, and I think what we've just got to focus on at the minute is, as far as I'm aware, we are still looking at the 1st of October, beginning of October, some point for implementation of CPE. We will obviously have discussions with County over issues, and those discussions are ongoing and will continue to be in that way. But I think the point is valid that we are in different times. We need to consider that. But having said that, there is still a programme that needs to be adhered to, and we will have those discussions, and we can report back if there's any movement on any area on that in a future meeting, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, good. So anybody's views? Firstly, should we have an August meeting? I'll take that as a no then, shall I? Councillor Cortell.
Sorry, other councillors may feel I'm pushing my pet subject. I think it's quite important that homelessness, you've separated homelessness from housing by having them in 2 different months, which shows they are disconnected from each other. So I think there could be an arguable case for putting homelessness into an August meeting and perhaps one other topic.
Yeah, but I think what I'd like to do is tie up the anti-poverty task and finish group with homelessness. That's
the trouble is, Chair, that people could be on the street in large numbers by then because furloughing will have ended.
Chairman, that's an assumption. We don't know that. And what we're trying to do through the housing department is to make sure that doesn't happen. So I think that there needs to be some confidence on that side. If that clearly is becoming a real issue, then that becomes something we have to make some urgent decisions on. But I think to dive in and say that we're going to have masses of homeless due to furloughing coming to an end is an assumption at this stage. I would like to think it's the wrong assumption, but I understand where Councillor Cortell's coming from. And we would hope that be the case from the efforts that we put in to date from the housing side. Certainly the officers have been tasked by the MPs to actually give them an indication of how homelessness can be prevented in the future. We've managed to date because there's been a lot more money thrown at it, quite simply put. If that money continues to come in, then we can continue to manage it. But I think at this stage, I am slightly troubled that we can sort of be almost sort of taking actions that may not be necessary or taking the wrong actions because we don't fully understand the picture. So my inclination on this is that when Councillor Osborne asked about the whether we wish to have a August committee, the view is at the moment no. I'm not saying we shouldn't, but I'm saying that's what's coming across. You can put event strategy into the September meeting, and the homelessness and housing and all that sit within the anti-poverty task and finish group to make it really sort of work together on that side. Otherwise, I think we'll have a very disparate sort of approach to this if we're not careful. We want to get it right, and it's about getting it right and having the resources to ensure we're looking at it thoroughly. I think Ben mentioned earlier that about the housing strategy working in tandem on that there'll be decisions taken from some of the housing decisions on the development company as to the type of housing they wish to see built, where they would like to see that built, and that in itself would have some impact on the homelessness. So I think it's about getting it right for the medium and long term rather than trying to get an immediate action into place on an agenda, where I would hope that officers are doing their utmost to minimise that issue that I know Councillor Cortell believes so strongly about, and rightly so. So what I'm hearing at the moment is that the waste contract goes to July. The September one has the event strategy. The October one is very much focused on the financial plan, which is going to be quite critical over the next 5 years because of all the changes in the finance of the council. The November one with homelessness, housing strategy and the anti-poverty task and finish group. The January is the revenue budgets. And then the March one is for the environment strategy, and then the April one for CPE. That's what I had scribbled down as the conversation's gone on. Sorry, Chairman, I did go on a bit there, but I just want to be clear in my own mind as to where we're placing these items.
Yeah, well, that's pretty well as I placed them as well. So we're on the same bit of paper at about 20 miles distance. Malcolm, you want to come back?
Yeah, Chairman, I think one of the things we've been doing is we've been liaising with agents in Bexhill to sort of particularly Bexhill to understand what level of arrears we're seeing, and as Tony said, there's a bit of an assumption in there because they're not seeing a huge level of arrears at this point in time. Having said that, and again echoing Tony's comment, I agree Councillor Cortell is quite right to raise it as something that might come up in the future. So that's not to say we shouldn't consider it, but when you look that there is so much going on, and I know that our MPs are particularly interested in the success we had in getting people off the street over the COVID period. Is how do we maintain that? And both of them, sorry, I'm speaking with Sally Ann, not present at the moment, but both of them have asked for for an update on what it was we did over the period that actually was successful. And as Tony's again said, it was basically we housed people over which we didn't have a duty to because we had some money from government to do that. And that those are the sort of things we need to continue. But obviously our MPs want a little bit more detail on that so that they can represent us. I think the other thing that sort of others that have hinted at have said is, with the anti-poverty strategy, with the housing strategy, with homelessness, there are so many interlinkages between those three areas of work. I think it would be good for members to consider them as a single entity rather than talk about each of them and risk having, for may say, the same conversation on 2 or 3 different occasions. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, I would agree with you there, Malcolm. I think, plus I think that trying to rush it will rush the work of the task and finish group, and it's such an important one that Councillor Coleman has continually said, and Councillor Cortell. So saying that, I wouldn't want it to sort of almost look as if it was being rushed inside of inside sort of 6 weeks. So I would prefer it, to be sort of November. And taken then. That's what I would prefer. So if we're all happy, I've got to think up here. Councillor Maynard says he would like to move as suggested by Tony and myself, the main work programme. So if you're all happy with that, do you want to just quickly run through that again, Tony, just to confirm it? Waste contract.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So for the 20th of July, we've got the waste contract.
Yep.
On the 24th of August, we're postponing that or cancelling that committee. It was only provisionally put in any case. The 14th of September, we'll have the event strategy going to that one.
Yeah.
On the 19th of October, it's the medium-term financial plan, which is a critical one as a main item. On the 23rd of November, we'll have the homelessness, housing strategy and anti-poverty task and finish group. On the 25th of January, as printed on the agenda. On the 15th of March, we'll have the environment strategy review off. And then on the 26th of April, we'll have the CPE. And then that covers all the highest priority items on Appendix 1 and some of the other items on there as well. I mean, bearing in mind that running in parallel with this, there will also be the cabinet, which will likely feed into the plan. So we'll have to at some point as well.
Yeah, and I would have.
September would be realistic, but we don't.
Yeah, would I be right in assuming that if the world comes to a steaming end, as Councillor Cortell is concerned over with numbers of people not being able to pay their rent and homelessness, that would almost be emergency situation for cabinet, wouldn't it? It wouldn't come to us to discuss it. That would go straight. If you was coming across a major trouble, that would be for the cabinet member, would it not?
Chairman, can I just assure you, if we arrive at that situation, members will be the first to know about it.
I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and the lead member for housing.
Absolutely, as well, Chairman. Yes. But yeah, no. I mean, if that situation arises, there's no doubt. We're into a different league, and as I said, earlier, and as Councillor Langland has rightly said, we are living in different times and we need to adjust to those times and respond accordingly. And that may mean we need to be flexible about the actions we take and the timing that we take them in.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you're all happy, I've got it. It's been moved by Councillor Maynard. The work programme as just set out by Tony. Someone be happy to second that?
I would be happy to
Yeah, I'll second it. Oh.
Excellent. There's a couple there. I think it was Deirdre and
Councillor Mooney.
Martin. So that's good. Louise, do we need a roll call on this one, or we just take I suppose we need a roll call, do we?
Yes, I'll take a vote. Okay, members, so please respond with 4 against, abstain. Councillor Barnes.
4.
Councillor Carroll.
4.
Councillor Clark.
4.
Councillor Mrs Cook.
4.
Councillor Cortell.
Abstain.
Councillor Mrs Earl Williams.
4.
Councillor Errington.
4.
Councillor Gray.
4.
Councillor Langlands.
4.
Councillor Maynard.
4.
Councillor Mooney.
4.
And Councillor Osborne.
4.
So that's 11, 4 and 1 abstain.
I think that's carried then. Before I move on, I've just seen here Cabinet Portfolio Holder Dixon. Kevin, are you still with us?
Indeed I am.
I'm sorry, Kevin. I should have called you in on the performance report 4th quarter. Is there anything you wish to add, or are you quite happy just to say?
No, Ben covered everything fantastically. Thank you.
That's good. Okay, thank you. Well, that being that, I think we're at the end of the agenda. So I suppose what I do now is say thank you very much to everybody. I hope that wasn't too difficult. I think we've covered everything we needed to, and well done, and safe journey home.
Thank you, Chair. Cheerio, everyone.
Thank you, Chair.